Hello, everyone, and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets, and drama. So, I'm back for another of my Have Your Say series. And because we're talking about a new series, which is Drag Race UK Season 6, I thought I'd have to bring on a special guest to help me. So, please join me in welcoming someone you may have heard of, Derek, aka the Drag Detective.
I heard some
Hi.
gossip that he's actually secretly British. I think it's not true. Thanks for having me, Matt.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Of course.
Yeah, well, I thought I had to get the drag detective's opinion and see if we can figure out some drag mysteries about this season.
Yeah, I am a huge fan of UK, so I went in with some big expectations, and we'll see if my expectations were met.
Exactly. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see because this is now the biggest outside of the American season. This is the biggest season in terms of the amount of seasons there's been. So it's kind of interesting to see how quickly it's developed and whether this season can live up to some of the previous ones.
Well, and if you think about the US seasons, US season 6 is one of the all-time favorites ever. So we'll see if this one can, stack up at all.
Season 6 is my favorite, as in US. So yeah, this is we'll see, I guess, if it can live up to the expectation. But
Hmm.
obviously, this is my Have Your Say series. People may know about this already. So, what I do is I ask my audience their opinions if they agree with the outcome of the episode. And we're going to sort of talk about it. But first, I want to go through the actual episode. So, we'll just go through the Queen's entrances, their talent show, and then the runway looks and just kind of give our opinion about it and things like that. Does that sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Great. So, I thought let's start obviously at the beginning, a very good place to start. So the first queen we had in was Releasa Slaves, and we'll put up a reference image on screen, and we've both got reference images as well. So she's from Saint Lucia originally, but lives in London now, I believe. So I just saw what was your first opinion about Releasa?
Well, my first thing was, wait, is this like a gag where like Ariana walks in the workroom or like Lady Gaga walks in the workroom, and now they're having Rihanna walk in the workroom? And then I was like, wait, no, 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 it's not Rihanna, but she sure looks like Rihanna.
It's uncanny how much as soon as she mentioned it, I was like, oh my God, literally certain angles. I was like, it's almost undetectable whether it's her or not. It's crazy.
Especially when she had like the loud hair on later. Like I was like, this is like celebrity impersonation, like down.
It's great. And I mean, obviously, and Rihanna is hot. So to look like Rihanna and do it well is such a compliment to whoever it is. Like, it's so good.
And if she wasn't memorable for looking like Rihanna, she's also memorable for her drag name, which is amazing. And what an amazing entrance look to come in with.
No, she definitely came in. It was a great first one because we always know the first and the last queens are usually the ones that they think are going to be the most memorable in a way. And we all know like it quite often the queen that comes in first or last is usually like a top queen in terms of getting to the end of the season and things like that. So I think there was a reason they chose her to be first. So yeah, great. I loved the outfit, loved everything about her. Yeah, great. And the drag name is incredible.
Yeah, I was immediately impressed and really good in the confessional. Like felt really genuine and natural in the confessional.
Yes, love it. So let's move on because we want to be otherwise we'll be here forever. So we need to. I want to make sure we keep it going.
Yes.
So no, otherwise I know I'll just talk forever. So the next queen was Charity
Hmm.
from Northern Ireland. So I wanted to
Yes.
know what are your thoughts on Charity?
So this like the what do you call it? The primary color palette that she said that she does immediately. Yes, this look is an immediate yes. I loved her from the second she came out, and I think she's my favorite so far.
She's really cool. She definitely reminds me of Blue Hydrangea, not just because they're both
Mhm.
Northern Irish, but both like the color palette, also out of drag. They both have that kind of very innocent looking, but maybe there's something underneath the surface. But I loved her. I
Mhm.
thought she was so funny. Really loved the look. Like it meticulously done. Yeah, to me, that was really good.
Yes, love her.
Then we've got Zahira Zapanta, who is originally from the Philippines, but now lives in Manchester, I believe. One of the There's so many Manchester queens this
There's
season.
no Manchester queens left. They left the baby queens to keep the scene going.
It's crazy how I mean Manchester is a really big It's like there's a really big gay scene specifically there. But in terms of the UK, as you know, is like pretty tiny. So there's not that many really big cities that can deal with or can sort of support a drag scene. Like in America, you have so many big cities. We don't really have that. So Manchester is probably one of the biggest outside of London. So it kind of does make sense. But
And she is so stunning. Like, face card never declines. This wig, the look, like she immediately was like on my radar because of how hot this entrance look was.
I mean, Filipino queens always bring it. Like literally, they're always immaculately done. But yeah, this I love when she like threw open the cape and it was just like the hair, everything she was really giving. I loved it from the second she walked in.
And she was feeling herself for sure.
The bit where she was like rolling on the ground, I was like, yeah, you bet it's TV. Do something. Like it's we want to see you do it. Live your fantasy.
Exactly.
Moving on. So next we have Chanel O'Connor. Now,
Mm-hmm.
immediately when she walked in, I was getting Ellie Diamond, not just because they're Scottish, but they are actually related. They are drag mother and daughter. This is the drag daughter. So, but it was the style was immaculate, just like Ellie, like very much on point. The outfit, really loved how simple it was, but elegant at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Well, and like unlike Ellie, who's kind of known for like a more like cutesy aesthetic, like she was giving like businesswoman, like she means business, very demure, very just like simple silhouette with a simple hair. She's giving me Delta work in the face. Am I crazy?
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
And she's giving like that kind of Delta like confidence and just like right from the jump was like there with like the sassy remarks. Like she's definitely there to make good TV, and I'm there for that.
Definitely. I mean, we'll get onto this a bit later, but when she was the one that basically said the most shady stuff, but not in a bad way, in a kind of like a fun way. But when she was talking to Charity, and Charity, she said, "Oh, I don't think your talent was maybe that great," and Charity basically confronted her. She didn't even apologize. She just went, "Yeah, okay." Anyway, I was like, "Yeah, you do
She like
it."
made yes, exactly. She like made Charity feel good for a second, and then she's like, "But like that's what we're here for." So, and Charity's like, "Oh, okay."
You do need a kind of shady queen, and they've obviously from the get go, she is obviously going to fulfill that. But yeah, loved the look, thought she looked great. So, and she made everything that she brought apparently. So good for her.
Yeah.
Okay, so next we had Actavia. So, and she's our first
Mm-hmm.
Welsh queen of the season.
I didn't know what to expect from this look because she has a very like beauty mug, but then it's a very like she's wearing like a mullet and then this like very kind of out there bodysuit. And I feel like I still don't know exactly what to expect from her from everything that she's shown, but I feel like she's a bit more versatile. Like I think that she could pull a couple different types of looks out and like it would all still feel like her.
Yeah, she's very much like you said. She kind of reminds me of so many different queens because she's got a little bit of almost like the kookiness of someone like Crystal Method, but also the like the snatched makeup and everything. But then she's also a dancer, and yeah, and then she reminds me of Tace a little bit in the sense, not just because they're Welsh, but she's got that poise and almost like funniness to her as well.
Mm-hmm. And she
But
seems
yeah.
very just natural in the work in the confessional. Like she's having fun in the confessional, which is really nice.
Which is the yeah, if you're not having fun, then we can tell as an audience, but she definitely was there and was loving it. So yeah, good for her. I really liked her. And next we had Lavoie. So she's probably the only person from the season that I had heard of before because she was on Queen of the Universe. And she also is quite well known in the UK scene. I've definitely heard her name because she does a lot of like cruise ship gigs and like pride gigs and stuff. So I definitely knew of her before.
How well did she do on Queen of the Universe? Because I never watched it.
That part I can't remember. I think she did decently well. I'll have to look it up and put it up on screen because I honestly can't remember how well she did. She also, I'm pretty sure, if you remember, they did a thing where there was a drag race representative from each country, and the Vivian was the UK one.
Mm-hmm.
Lavoie plus a few other people from this season got really far, and I think Lavoie was the finalist with the Vivian, but then the Vivian won it within the lip sync. So I think Lavoie was almost the UK representative.
Okay, I mean she seems very seasoned, very polished. I love how she had this coat like together, and then when she got to the end of the little like walkway to the workroom, she just like like pulled it open and like revealed the dress underneath. Like she knows what she is doing.
Yeah, no, you can tell, seasoned queen. She really is giving me those vibes of she knows what she's come here to do. She's not putting on an act for the camera. This, you can tell if you went to one of her shows, this is exactly how she would be. And yeah, I loved it. Loved this style of drags. It's like campiness, but also polish and live performance, which we'll get to later. But you can tell she's got all of the goods there. So big
Yeah,
fan.
in my head, I was like, are we about to have a Joe Black moment or like the opposite of a Joe Black moment where someone comes in with all of this like renowned like fame and then, immediately get cut? But that is obviously not what happened.
No, no, thankfully. Yeah, because she's great. I really liked her. Next, we had Marmalade. So that was, I thought this was an amazing look. I loved how sort of put together this was, so simple. The silhouette is incredible, really kind of giving me almost slightly old Hollywood vibes in a way, but like really classic. But yeah, loved the look, really well put together. And then she came out with a really funny and kind of gross entrance line. So I didn't quite know what to expect.
I still don't know what to expect, low key. Like, I think of all of the queens, like, she's still the one that is like a question mark because she's so fun and wacky in the confessional, but she seems a little bit reserved on like the runway and like in the way that she's like selling these looks and even in the talent show a little bit.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how that will progress because she has been probably one of the more difficult ones to get a grasp on exactly what she does. So I'm looking forward to seeing a bit more of her. But yeah, I loved the entrance look. I thought it looked immaculate.
This wasn't one of my favorites, but it's definitely very clean.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Next, we had Kyron Thrax. And so she is the drag daughter of Charity Case from season 3. And personally, I didn't know that before I looked it up, but to me, you could kind of tell she has that kooky style, but also really well done and funny and just immaculately done. And the makeup was quite similar as well. So yeah, loved this.
Yeah, I mean, Charity's one of the most like mistreated rob queens from any franchise. So like to see her drag daughter is at least like getting some recognition is like, okay, she's doing the family name well. I love this look. I love her name. I love how she's like, oh, am I the last one? Because like you said, like she's almost expecting that kind of like, oh, she's one to watch.
Yeah, definitely. I really love it when a queen, because she obviously said that. I'm assuming she knew she was probably going to get some shady looks for it, but she still did it because she's giving good TV. That's literally the point of
Mm-hmm.
this whole thing. So no, loved her, and we'll get onto it later. But she was also great in the rest of the episode as well. So loved that.
Yeah.
Then we had Saki Yu, who is originally from Melbourne, Australia, which is where I now live, but she now lives in the UK. Yeah, I really loved this. I thought the entrance look was quite interesting. I don't think we've ever quite seen something like this, but it was a very clean silhouette. And I really liked what I liked the most, which she seemed genuinely happy to be there and really excited, but a little bit more low key than some of the others. And I really liked that.
I don't love this look to be honest. I wish it was a little bit longer. Like I feel like the leggings, I'm seeing too much of it. I want more, to see more of the pink. But I love her energy in the confessional, and her mug is stunning.
And I really loved the fact that they've got two, because they've got two Filipina queens on the season. And I
Yeah.
really loved that there's more representation than there has been in some other seasons where there wasn't a huge amount of diversity. So this season, I'm really glad they've at least a decent amount. And I really liked her as a person. She seemed really genuinely cool. And because I live in Melbourne, Australia, I feel like there's kind of, even though I've never heard of her personally, but I was like, I really like her and everything. The accent reminded me of where I live. So
Right, right.
okay, so moving on, we had Lil. This was a really interesting one because I loved the entrance look, and she was, as she said, her energy was quite low in compared to some of the others, but she also has this funniness to her. And when she said that she's in the same family as Banksy and Cheddar Gorgeous, I was like, yeah, this totally tracks because she's got that kind of kooky energy, but also the polish as well.
If there's like two queens that I'm the most excited for on this season, it's Kyron Thrax and Lil. Like coming in with a little creepy doll that's like the same as you. This look is so bizarre. Her energy is just so different from everyone else. Like it feels like everyone else is like putting on at least a little bit for the cameras, and it seems like Lil is just so chill and is like, I'm just gonna come here and do what I do, and this, we'll see what happens.
I loved her, loved everything she did this episode. I thought she was really cool. And I wasn't sure 100% what to expect because she said I'm quite low energy. And quite often on Drag Race, those people don't do that well. But I'm really glad that she came in and she showed us exactly who she is. I thought this doll looked so creepy, but good at the same time. And I was like, I love
Yes.
it. From the start, she was one of my faves.
Yeah, I love her.
Then we had Kiki Snatch, who is also from St. Lucia. Oh, sorry, she's St. Lucian background, but was born and bred in London. In terms of the entrance look, I think it's a really cool bodysuit. It looks great, but to me, it kind of looked a little bit more like a lip sync outfit compared to maybe some of the other entrances. She looked great, but maybe not an entrance look.
Maybe just add like a tulle peplum with like some tulle like coming off the back that she can kind of work as she came in. I feel like just that little addition could have really like upped this, but it's still a stunning bodysuit, and I'm really excited for her as well because she's really fun in the confessional. She's like having a good old time.
No, I loved her. She was giving everything I wanted, was giving me like the Taste hair, like whipping it around and everything. And she's also a dancer
Mhm.
like Taste. So I was really enjoying that element of it. Just like I said, yeah, I think they just needed something for the entrance look. But other than that, loved her energy. And I'm really looking forward to the rest of it to see what she
Yeah,
does.
yeah.
And then the last queen into the workroom was Dita Garbo, which is obviously a reference to Greta Garbo, I'm
Greta
assuming.
Garbo and Dita Von Teese.
I'm
I'm
assuming so.
assuming.
I'm assuming so.
Yeah. I feel like of all of the queens of this episode, and this, I know no spoilers. I have been avoiding spoilers. Of all the queens, just from their edit, who if I had to guess who's first out, I think it could be her. Because I feel like the edit was kind of undermining her a little bit. Like she's coming off as like this like season queen who like does all these things. But I feel like the other queen's like reaction to her and maybe just like what she brought to the episode wasn't as strong as maybe she was presenting.
Yeah, I really liked her entrance look and I thought she came across as being very seasoned, but she is quite quiet, but also she's like a bit reserved in a way. And I also got the same impression that they were showing her as being the sort of more seasoned queen. She's the oldest queen that there's ever been on UK. And I mean, it's also really impressive to do this at that age, like compared to some of these 21-year-olds. That's incredible. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if she was going to get sort of like the Joe Black treatment of someone coming in, having this big expectation, then not being given a very fair edit.
Well, and it felt so like in contrast to Lavoie because they're the two like older, seasoned, queens, and it felt like Lavoie really got the like she's here for a reason, like she's iconic, and it felt like Dina maybe got a little bit of the like I don't know if she's bringing necessarily what she thinks she's bringing.
Yeah, I liked. I think she seems nice, but from what we've seen, she's quite quiet, so it's difficult to read her. But I was surprised that she was the last in. I thought someone like Lavoie because she got the biggest reaction from people and everyone. A bit like when Cheddar
Mm-hmm.
Gorgeous came in on her season, everyone knew who she was, and it was a gag. It was kind of the same thing for Lavoie, so I'm kind of surprised they didn't put her at the end. But maybe it was because she's the oldest. I don't know if that was maybe the storyline they're trying to push.
And I mean, she's like, I'm not saying this in a negative way. She's very cocky. Like she's very cocky in the confessional. So I feel like coming in last, being seasoned, and like no way, like owning, like I am going to win this. Like I'm sure they were expecting her to come in with a certain vibe that might have like been a little bit like scaring some of the other queens. And I mean, maybe that did happen. We just didn't necessarily like get that vibe.
Yeah, I'm sort of on the fence as to how it's going to go for the rest of the season. But she seemed like the entrance looked quite polished and everything, so that part of it I was happy with.
Yeah, I feel for me like with her, I'm not blown away yet, but I have still have high expectations.
Yes. Well, let's move on to the talent show or the sort of the cabaret show, I think is what they called it. So first up in the cabaret show, we had Lavoie, who obviously did singing, showing off her voix or voice,
Mm-hmm.
but she also did kind of impressions as well of Judy and Shirley Bassey as well. And I thought that was such a smart move because I can imagine she does this on the cruise ships, at the gigs and everything. And she also knew that RuPaul is going to know who those two people are because they're slightly older and sort of legends. And so I thought that was such a smart move. And she also sounded great when she did it.
Yeah, I think she went first for a very specific reason because hers was the most cabaret, and this was like billed as like the cabaret show. So I feel like she really set the tone, and she showed her personality so well. Like she showed her both the talent of being able to sing, but also like the way that she sang, the lyrics, like everything was just showing exactly what type of queen this is, and it was phenomenal.
Great. No, loved this. It was one of my favorites. And like you said, it was a great way to open it.
Yes.
So next we had Octavia, who did kind of an original song, but more it was kind of a dance number.
This was fine to me. I feel like we've seen a lot of dance numbers throughout the many, many, many talent shows that we've had. So there was nothing new that like caught my eye or like made me like remember it, but I still think she did a really good job.
Same. That's exactly how I felt. I was really impressed that she managed to do that dancing on that tiny, tiny stage, which I'm not sure why they
Mm-hmm.
made it so small if they knew some people are going to do dance numbers. But as you said, it is something we've seen before. She did it very well, sort of like the kind of ballroom, kaka, that kind of, it was really impressive. I couldn't do that. I'd probably break a hip if I tried, but not something that I would necessarily remember when I think of all of them back, because we have seen a lot of that.
Well, and for how weird her two runways were, the entrance and like the later runway, this felt very just kind of more run of the mill. Like there was nothing that really set it apart like her two looks did.
No, I agree. So yeah, fine, but not something that was super memorable in my opinion. But she looked great and did a good job.
Yeah.
Then we had Lil, who did the makeup thing, the comedy.
Oh, so good. It's so hard to find like a original thing that no one has done for the talent show. And this felt so original, so fresh, and really like it was her stamp on it.
I loved it. It was so good, and I loved the fact that she made it kind of comedy, but you didn't quite know what to expect. And as soon as she started, and it was like, get your makeup on, Piggy, or something. It was so funny, and RuPaul was cackling. But also the fact that she did such quick makeup, and I was thought, what the hell's gonna when she put it on at the end, she looked really good. You would never be able to tell that she did that in what, like a minute or something.
Yeah, it was like Raja's when she like sewn the dress on All Star 6. It's like, how is this gonna come together? And then suddenly it does. And you're like, just trust the process.
She's great, and I thought it really showed that she's got that kookiness, and it showed the type of queen that she is. And yeah, this was probably my favorite, I would say.
Yeah, I would say this is my second favorite.
Okay, yeah. Moving on, next we had Kiki Snatch, who sang an original song.
Mm-hmm. I really liked this.
It was very unexpected because she came out in another sort of more what I would call a lip sync outfit. But then there was the mic, and I was like, oh, is she going to lip sync with a mic? But then she sang live, and I was like, actually, I thought she sounded really good for someone who didn't bill herself as a singer like Lavoie. I wasn't expecting her to sing, but I thought she sounded pretty decent actually, and like it was I couldn't do that, and yeah, good for her.
Yeah, my only worry with her was for the fashion because while she looked good in the entrance and the look for this, they were both just kind of like they didn't tell me anything about her. Like anyone could have worn those two outfits. So I'm glad that for the third one, we actually did get to see more of that. But yeah, that was my one worry when I was watching this.
I agree. It is kind of more of a lip sync, almost like an ice skater. I mean, it's beautiful, but as you said, it doesn't tell us who she is. But really surprised at how good she sounded because I had no idea she could sing. So good for her. I thought that was a really good talent. So next we had Zahira Zapanta, who did uh I guess original song is what you would call it, with a dance as well.
I like barely remember that. Like barely remember a single thing that happened. She looked great. I think is it the Abraham Levy kind of like battle look that like a lot of people wear. So the look was kind of nondescript. She looked stunning. Her wig, I remember being stunning, but like if you were like put a gun to my head and was like, what did you do for the talent show? I would be like, well, I'm out.
No, it was a fine song, but unfortunately nothing too memorable. We've seen that sort of thing before, and unfortunately on Drag Race, because we've been spoiled over all the seasons now, unless you do something super memorable like Anitra chopping wood and the Walk the Duck and everything,
Mm-hmm.
you're not gonna be remembered. Unfortunately, she looked great, but I didn't really remember anything about this.
Yeah.
So then we had Marmalade, who did a spoken word about the plastic shoes and drag and things like that. What were your thoughts?
I feel like this was like, I feel like she was like, I just want to be safe because like there's no way this could be in the bottom, but I don't think there's any way that this is going to be in the top either.
I was slightly surprised because I loved the outfit that she was wearing, that sort of pink power suit sort of thing. But I thought it was going to be, if you're going to do a spoken word, I think it either has to be really funny, like someone like, or member like Tatiana's spoken word is still talked about to this day, or it has to be really, really powerful and heartfelt to the point where it's, yeah. And to me, it was kind of on the fence. It was fun, but I'm not going to remember it after this, probably.
Well, and even like the very like powerful, heartfelt ones like Mariah Balenciaga still just end up safe. So I just don't think like if you're shooting for like a win, this probably isn't the way to go.
No, I think she wanted to be different. And I'm glad I liked that she did something that no one else did because a lot of people do original songs and it can get a little bit monotonous. But yeah, to me, it didn't quite stand out. I wish she had maybe gone down either the funny route or the super like message route. But yeah, she was probably never going to win with this. So, but still liked her, still thought she did really well and it was a nice message.
Yeah,
Next up, we had Relisa, who did a kind of sexy original song with the Brit crew member sitting there.
I liked this a lot. I don't think I loved it as much as the judges. Like the judges were like living and I had a fun time, but it wasn't like my favorite or like one of my top three or anything like that.
No, I thought the dance moves, everything was impressive. It was something different. Like I'll remember that she was the one that did the kind of sexy dance, but it wasn't anything I would probably remember, but she looked great.
Yeah, no, she did.
So the next queen was Charity, and she did the kind of 80s comedy thing, workout.
Yeah, I mean, and especially because Alyssa Edwards like just did something like this. Like, unfortunately, now we have something to compare it to, which is not her fault. She didn't know that like that was what's gonna air, just a couple weeks prior. But it just was not to the level of what everyone else was doing. The jokes weren't landing, but she looked great.
I thought it was a really fun idea. I really liked that she was trying to do something different because this again is almost like comedy slash spoken word a little bit. So it wasn't just
Mm-hmm.
another original song. But yeah, the jokes to me just didn't quite land and they weren't strong enough. I think that a few of them were okay, but you really need to have joke after joke after joke for something like this to land. And it kind of felt like she had not quite thought that bit through, but liked the actual outfit was really cool and it was definitely giving the 80s vibe, but not my favorite.
Yeah.
The next one was Chanel O'Connor, who did a kind of comedy song, I guess is what you would call it.
Happy birthday, which now isn't copywritten. So she's like, oh, I'm taking advantage.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked the gag when she sort of like, I need to check the lyrics, and then she did Happy Birthday. It was really funny, but it was just so short. That was kind of it. And then she walked off stage, and I was like, oh, that was 10 seconds or something.
Yeah, it like just didn't go anywhere. Like it was such a strong start and she got a really big laugh out of the room, but she needed like more gags like that to keep it going. And I feel like everything that happened after like never hit that same peak. So it was just kind of like started really strong and then it just kind of fizzled and then it was over.
Yeah, I agree. That was I thought she looked like amazing. She's obviously very clearly talented seamstress. She looks great, but I just wish there had been a couple more jokes, which I thought was kind of ironic that she was saying to Charity, "I don't think yours landed," whereas I don't think hers it landed a bit more than Charity's, but not that much more.
Yeah, well, and I thought the same thing in the beginning when she was clocking like Charity's entrance look. And in my head, I'm like, Charity looks really cute. Like this is a really good outfit. And like this you're wearing a very nice pencil suit. So like pencil skirt and suit top. So it's like she keeps clocking the wrong person, I feel like, or like clocking someone and then immediately like doing worse.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how she goes on and whether I don't know if she's deliberately doing this because she knows she'll get airtime for saying those things, which
Mm-hmm.
all the like queens do that. And if she didn't do that, we wouldn't be talking about it. So, maybe she's doing
Right,
it.
exactly.
Then we had Dita Garbo, who did an original song slash, I guess it was almost a burlesque dance, sort of.
Yeah, the Dita, like it was. I remember that.
Out of all the original songs, hers was maybe the most memorable because of it was actually quite well the actual like well written in the sense of the beat of the song, and it actually sounded like a real song. But I just don't think the performance itself was that memorable.
Yeah, no, like I watched this a couple days ago, and I don't really remember what she did outside of like singing her song that was saying her name a lot.
Yeah, she looked great. Not hugely memorable. I thought there was going to be a little bit more to it, but the most memorable song by far.
Yeah.
And then we had Saki Yu, who did the comedy burlesque, I guess is what you'd call it.
Yes, this was so fun.
I loved this. I loved that it was different and it was also really well done. The outfit looked really well made. And I really liked that there was it wasn't just one gag. It was the feather and then it was the sleeve and then it was the pulling of the sort of the nipple tassel that was really long. I really liked that she had multiple gags. It wasn't just one thing.
Yeah, and she looked beautiful the whole time. So she was able to like blend beauty and comedy, and like that's always a like RuPaul loves when queens do that.
No, she was definitely one of the people I stands out because also no one else did anything like that. So I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I was
Um,
surprised she wasn't in the top. I thought she did really good.
yes, I also thought she was going to be in the top as well for this. And then finally, we had Kyron Thrax, who did, I guess, comedy spoken word. I'm not really sure what you'd call it.
She was like a sommelier that had like this sister creature on her back, and a chaos ensued.
I thought this was really fun. This to me was also one of the most cabaret type things because obviously cabaret can be a lot of things, but it was just so random and it was almost like a one woman show kind of. But I thought it was really well done and really she'd obviously thought about it. It did take me a while to realize that she had the fake waiter arms in front of her. Like all I saw was just the monster arms. So I didn't quite get at first that it was supposed to be on her back. Maybe it was just me, but the arms in front that are obviously the fake, I didn't see them at first because they blended in. So I didn't quite get that it was two people. And then when they zoomed in a bit closer, I was like, oh, okay, I now get what she's doing.
I noticed the arms, but I was trying to figure out which ones like where her real arms went. Like I was like, are they in the puppet? Are they here? Like what's going on here? What's the anatomy of this outfit?
But I loved it. I thought she did really well. I loved she had the different elements. So she had not just like the mayo, but the wine and then the cream at the end. But it was just so funny. And even with mayo all over her face, she still somehow managed to look really good. I don't know how she managed to place it so well that it didn't look bad. It kind of looked deliberate. And I don't know how she did that.
Well, and the puppet was also really well made. So
Yeah.
like she put a lot of money and like thought into this entire performance, and that was my favorite one.
No, yeah, you're right. Actually, maybe she was my favorite. Mm.
It's
I
close with like Lil, really close.
It was very close for me. Yeah, I agree. That to me, they were the top two by far. So let's move on to the runways, and then we'll go on to the Have Your Say poll results. So the runway
Perfect.
theme, which was apparently backed by popular demand, which was Queen of Your Hometown. So we had Chanel O'Connor to start with, who was doing the Scottish Highlands and Islands.
Yes, I thought this was really fun, but it definitely wasn't like it didn't have like a visual like wow. Like there were a lot of really cool elements, and I love that she went with this like sweater material. Like it was really cute. It was very chic, but it wasn't the most memorable one of the week.
Agreed. I thought she looked immaculate, but it did maybe look slightly more simple than some of the other runways. So, but yeah, she looks good. And it did look very Scottish, so that it fits the
Mhm.
brief. You even if she didn't tell you, you'd know what this was.
Yeah, and I love the hair.
Yes, yeah, she knew. She always looks great, but not that memorable, unfortunately. And then we had Kiki Snatch representing Saint Lucia.
Both her and Relisa went for the kind of like traditional like dress, but like making it their own. And luckily, they were not super similar. Like you got to see how both of them interpreted that kind of like blueprint. I preferred Kiki's. I love the hair paired with it. I love that her legs are out. She has an amazing body. And I thought this was like of the three looks, this is the one that showed me where her perspective is coming from.
Yeah, definitely. This was the most where her personality came through. The other two were slightly more on the generic side, but this one loved it, loved the color. The hair, especially, I think was almost like the best bit because it paired so perfectly with everything else. So yeah, to me, this was one of my favorites.
Yes.
Then we had Lil from Manchester, and she did a kind of reveal. So she came out originally was giving like Gallagher, as in Noel or both of them, I guess, from Oasis with the glasses, and then she took off the coat and then had this psychedelic melted smiley face green dress.
She feels like someone who was on skins all grown up. Like she still is like clubbing, dropping acid, being a mess, but like she's also really endearing.
I know, it gave you such an insight into what her mind is. And definitely that it does represent Manchester. That is that kind of style, and definitely a lot of punk elements to it. Yeah, loved it. And I thought it just looked, also the outfits themselves were just so well done. So yeah, she was one of my favorites, and I loved, she was one of the only ones that did a proper reveal, and reveals are always going to do well as long as it's a good reveal.
And like the final like pink hair reminded me of like when Lily Allen went that like
Yes.
pink with like dark root, and I was like living.
No, really, this was one of my favorites. I loved this.
Yeah, same.
Then we had Kyron Thrax representing Lancashire. So she was dressed as a witch.
One of my favorite looks of the year from all the franchises. Like the leg warmer type things, the like little all the details of the feathers coming off, the makeup, the witch hat, like it is like the perfect blend of camp and fashion.
I was blown away when she came out like this because something like Witch can so easily look costumey, and this did not look costumey. I didn't get at first that the feathers were flames. It wasn't until I think it was Alan pointed out, and I was like, oh my god, of course it is. And even just looking at it, there's so as you look at it more, the more things you pick up on. And yeah, absolutely amazing, loved it. And it is famous for witches, that area, so I can see why she did it. It was very representative. So yeah, loved it.
Amazing.
Probably maybe my favorite of these runways.
Definitely my favorite.
Then we had Zahira Zapanta representing the Philippines, and then she also had the UK. She had the flag with the two sides to it.
Yeah, this was a stunning dress. There was so much detail. I loved the hair, and I loved that this was so different from the other two looks that we'd seen her do.
Definitely, I really loved for me, the hair I think was more almost like the best bit. I don't know what it was, but it just was so well styled. Her face was absolutely immaculate. So yeah, I really loved. I loved everything about this. Yeah, she looked great in every single look that she did. So I think she's really bringing that representation of the Filipino excellence, because they always look good. So it's such a high level of drag.
Yeah.
Then we had Charity representing Northern Ireland. So she was doing the Derry Girls from the TV show.
Yeah, I wish that she did this look in the primary colors that she said she loves to do. Because I feel like this was more like, it was just more cosplay, which is fine. But for a runway that it's like, show us who you are, like, and how do I want to word this? Show us who you are, like, enveloped in like what your hometown represents. I feel like she went too far into just recreation and not making it her own.
Yeah, I guess I suppose it's really difficult because I think this color is so representative of school uniforms. Like in the UK, we have school uniforms, unlike I think in a lot of other countries. So I think it would, I guess it is difficult to do that, but at the same time, yeah, maybe she could have incorporated. We have seen people do stuff in their style and still keep the essence of it. So yeah, maybe she could have done a little bit more of that. I thought it looked really well made though, and sort of it looked great. So I really liked that she was representing something really Irish, and that was obviously the point of it. So yeah, I thought it was fine, but like I said, maybe not the most creative of every single person's.
Yeah.
Then we had Saki Yu from Manchester, but she was also representing Australia with Honey and the Bees.
This was so cute. I loved like the hat. I loved the makeup, and this was also like very different from what we've seen her do previously. So a lot of these queens took the opportunity and showed us like some very different sides to their drag, which was really exciting to like think about. Like, well, what's going to happen for the rest of the season? Like, what are these queens going to be able to do?
I loved the color. I think it looked great, and I almost thought she kind of looked like Queen Elizabeth, because she was very much all, Queen Elizabeth always wore one color, and she was very kind of immaculate, almost quite smart, but like an older lady smart in a way. And I thought this actually kind of gave a little bit of that, and it looked immaculate. And I think monochromatic always looks good.
Yeah, I love this.
Good for, yeah, really liked that. Then we had Lavoie representing Stockton on Tees. She was the pirate.
Okay, I have some beef with Michelle Visage because she said in the critiques, even though it's what's it called? I just had it in my head.
Panto.
Panto although it's pantomime, I still like it. I'm like, no, like what? Imagine going to Britain and being like, I mean, it's giving panto. It's like, yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, I as soon as she said that, I knew people were gonna. That was because it was a bit like, I think I mean, it is very panto. This is what you'd see at a pantomime. For anyone that doesn't know, pantomime is a type of theatre where there's a lot of audience interaction. It's usually a really campy character who will say something like, "Oh, where's this person?" And then the audience have to shout, "They're behind you!" And then the person sort of turns around, but they're not actually there, and they're on the other side. And it's kind of it's a very campy style of UK theatre. And panto is known for quite often having elaborate outfits, but I guess the insinuation is that they can look costumey and not necessarily that great. I thought this was a mixture of both. It was costumey, but it's also extremely well done. And things like Pirate can easily look very costumey, a bit like Witch can also look costumey, but hers I don't think did because it had all the elements done. So this was, I thought, a very strong look.
Yeah, no, I loved this look. Loved it. I wish the hair was orange, only because I think blue, that like deep royal blue and orange are really good, like complementary colors to each other. And the red was just kind of like, okay, like I didn't think anything about the red, but I think if it was orange, I would have like really like honed in on the hair choice.
Yeah, I guess from a distance, maybe it's like an orangey red, but yeah, I agree. It's not orange. It's red. So maybe there's a reason for that. I don't know, but yeah, loved the outfit.
Yeah.
Then we had Release Slaves, who was also repping St. Lucia.
And she brought out her loud Rihanna hair. I like this look a lot. Unfortunately, I just think Kiki did this look a little bit better.
I guess they're very different, but this one I think it maybe just looked slightly more simple and less sort of deliberate in the way that it was done. But loved the outfit. Thought she and like the hair, as you agree, she looked so Rihanna. I mean, she's stunning as a queen. So I was almost looking more at the face rather than the outfit. But yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
as you said, maybe not quite as good as Kiki's, but still a very strong outfit.
Yeah, and I loved the flow of the like fabric that's hanging down when she was like walking the runway.
The placement of it as well. That's really difficult to do to not make it too much, and the fact that she did it so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was really good.
Yeah.
Then we had Actavia repping Wales as the Welsh dragon.
The makeup was insane. It was so good. I was not expecting this from her.
No, the makeup was really, really impressive. And my only thing is, I really loved the concept of the look. I thought the fact that it was the Welsh dragon, obviously, we know that that's a famous thing, but the way that she did it was really interesting. And the fact that she was the flag with the dragon was really cool. I loved the makeup. My only thing is that I thought the bodysuit or sort of the leotard thing she was wearing was it was good, but I'm not sure if it was my favorite of all of the runway looks. I liked the concept, but as just a single look, if she didn't have the cape bit, it wouldn't have looked. I don't know. There was just something about it, but the makeup was the bit that was the most impressive to me.
Yeah. I didn't I liked the bodysuit. I liked like how like there was definitely thought put into like how to represent all of the aspects of the flag. My thing was the hair. I guess me and hair color is like my issue because she has like she's blending into black at the top of her forehead, but then the wig is red. But I feel like if the wig was black, it would have blended right into the wig and been really seamless.
Yeah, but I guess yeah. I don't notice these sorts of details. I think you've got more of an eye for that than I do. So no, but really liked. I thought it was good, and the bit where she blew the smoke out was really good. The concept
Mm-hmm.
was great. I loved that, and like you said, it was very unexpected from her because we didn't quite know what to expect before.
Yeah, exactly.
Then we had Dita Garbo representing Folkestone. So she was Miss Folkestone because she was like a beauty pageant. So I think it was the first ever Miss World. I think she said was the in Folkestone for the first time.
Yeah, I mean the wig and the makeup is amazing. I just don't think this outfit is enough.
It is a little bit too simple. Yes, I agree. Immaculate, but a bit simple. I think. Then we had Marmalade representing Pontyclun. I think that's how you pronounce it, Pontyclun, which is in Wales. And she was saying this is an old tradition where they get a horse's skull and wear it. I've personally never heard of this, but maybe it's just in that particular region. I have no idea. But it was quite haunting, but also beautifully executed.
Yeah, it was giving me like Wendigo with like the skull. Like it was really cool. And then, but there's so much beauty in the outfit below, and her makeup is so stunning. This was the moment in the episode where I was like, okay, I'm excited for Marmalade. Because before I was just kind of like, she was blending in a bit to me. She was being a little bit forgettable compared to some of the other personalities and drag aesthetics. But this is when I started paying attention.
No, we did. I loved this, and it definitely went into her kind of kookiness that you can tell is there, but she's also quite reserved, so it's difficult to tell. But when she came out in this, I was like, well, okay, we know that you're going to bring something really interesting to the season. So I was very excited by this.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So let's move on to the results of the Have Your Say poll. So
Yes.
I have not told Derek what these results are because I want to get sort of his first opinion on them to see whether he agrees. So everyone voted on these specific questions. So I'll just read out the results of each question and we'll discuss what our opinions about that.
Okay.
So question 1 was whose entrance was the best? And we had Kyron Thrax, number 1, with 25.9%. Then Lavoie with 20.4%. Then Lil with 19%.
I see why those were picked, but I think that Zahira might have been a little robbed.
So Zahira got 6.7%.
Okay. I feel like just like the way that she came in and was like rolling on the floor, and then just like there's so much fabric, it's a statement. I really remember this one maybe a little bit more than low key what Kyron wore.
Question 2 was whose talent show was the best? And with the vast majority of 48.2% was Kyron Thrax.
Yeah, agreed.
Then we had in second place Lavoie with 24.5%.
Okay.
And then in third place was Lil with 13.3.
Those were my three favorites. So I'm at peace with that.
Yeah, I think it could have. I think it's difficult to kind of. I think Kyron is probably the most memorable. Maybe I would have had Lil's above Lavoie's, but other than that, those three were definitely my three tops.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, Question 3 was whose runway was the best? So this one was a little bit more varied. So we had Kyron Thrax with 33.5%. Then Marmalade with 17%. Then Lil with 16%. And then actually in fourth place was Lavoie with 13.3. So they were all kind of a bit close in the numbers.
Yeah, I think those four and Zahira again were like my favorites of this runway. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah, so Zahira got 3%. So she would have been probably like fifth or sixth, something like that, because Octavia got 8.7. So Octavia would have been next, but Zahira was tied with Relisa with 3%.
Okay, maybe I'm just like overhyping Zahira a little bit, but I loved everything she brought, except for the talent show.
Question 4 was, do you agree with the tops? Because there were quite a few tops this week and there were no bottoms, there were no eliminations. So do you agree with the tops? We had 83.9% said yes, and then 16.1% said no. So pretty much over 80% said yes, they agree with the tops.
Yeah, I would agree with 5 out of the 6.
Who's the one?
I would have put Saki in the top over Relisa.
Okay, yeah. I can see, yeah, it's really difficult because what do you take? I always think, do you take the runway as being equal to the challenge, or does the challenge, which was the talent show, have more of a weighting and in the terms of the score? But I think you could argue it either way, probably. Question 5 was if you answered no to the previous question, so you didn't agree with the tops, who do you think should have been in the top instead? And the person with the most amount of votes from that was Marmalade.
Okay. I was like, give me Saki, give me Saki.
Saki was second with 5%.
Okay.
Of the votes, because most of the votes were people saying no, like they agreed with the top, so that doesn't count. So it was Marmalade, Saki Yu, and then Chanel O'Connor.
I mean, for me, it was Saki.
Yeah, I agree. I think Saki should have been higher because I thought her talent was one of the more memorable ones. I don't think she quite got enough praise for how different and polished it was, but funny at the same time. So I was a big fan of that.
Yeah.
Who won the lip sync, in your opinion, was question 6. And we had 94% for Kyron Thrax and 6% for Lavoie.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it was quite obvious. I think Kyron did such a good job. I think Lavoie, maybe, I would imagine she doesn't lip sync very often. I think she's more of a live performer. So I think that was more in Kyron's wheelhouse than Lavoie's. So
Well, and especially because it was like a mid 2000s dance track. Like I also don't think that's probably in Lavoie's like repertoire.
no, I imagine not. But I mean, she did a good job, but also she was dressed as a pirate. So it's quite, I feel like her outfit
Yeah.
didn't help.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the final question is question 7, which is who is the front runner in your opinion, i.e., the most likely to win the season? And we had Kyron Thrax with 46.1%, Lavoie with 35.1%, and then in third place was Release the Slaves with 5.5%, and not much further behind was Lil with 5.3.
I think that is a very good guess for a potential top four.
I think so, because they all did really well and they all showed something. And I think they showed not just looks, but also talent as in the talent show as well, and something a bit different. So yeah, I think that's likely going to be the top four from what we've seen so far.
Yeah, and even like even if I didn't love what Relisa was doing this week, that wasn't like one of my favorites. She has so much personality and charm, and I think she's going to do really well throughout the season.
Yeah, I agree. I think she's definitely got the talent, but also she's just really funny and charming the way she does things. So I'd love to see. I think she'll definitely be one of the more memorable queens who's not she's not afraid to call things out and be funny and be a bit shady, maybe, or that I think she'll be that person. So yeah, really loved
And
her.
I think Rue is going to love her.
Yeah. So moving on to some of the comments and to see what you think about this. So one of my Patreons called Yael, hi Yael, said, I really enjoyed this first episode, Meeting the Queens. I was especially glad to see some stellar older queens like Lavoie and Dita Garbo, as sometimes the queens are quite young. As per usual in the cabaret, some queens didn't seem ready for Drag Race, but I still loved it, especially since no one went home.
I guess I want to know what they mean by what do you mean not ready?
Yeah, I maybe may I don't know. I assume maybe they're saying that some people seemed less prepared for the show because some of their concepts were a bit, as we discussed, some of their concepts were maybe not as strong. Maybe that's what it was. Also, some of them were not necessarily super cabaret, but they were more just a fun thing to do. So maybe that's what they meant. But I actually really liked that no one went home. I kind of wish they did that more because I think it's a more fair way of doing it, especially on a talent show, because I really can't stand when they do a sewing challenge in the first week and then the person who can't sew goes home, but they're usually really like someone like Vanjie went home on a sewing challenge, but she had so much more to give. So I'm really glad that they've got rid of that as a concept.
Yeah, and I think especially for this cabaret show, it felt correct that no one went home because I truly don't think anyone did badly or like flopped. Like I think there were definitely people who maybe didn't shine as much as others, but there wasn't like a flat line performance.
No, everyone, it was such a high caliber. You're like, we're basically nitpicking at the smallest things, but all of those people, I would buy tickets to any of their shows and see it, and I would be happy.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then moving on to some of the actual comments from the Have Your Say poll, there were a lot of people who were talking about Kyron. Kyron Thrax, I think, was probably someone said Kyron is so iconic. I haven't been this excited for a queen on any franchise in a long time. Hopefully, production doesn't mess with her like they did with Charity Case, her drag mother.
Yeah. I mean it's fun to see someone who is both so personable but also so wacky and the judges actually like vibe with the wackiness. Because there's been plenty of queens throughout the years that maybe don't fit the drag race mold and just kind of get shuffled aside. And it's nice to see that Kyron is able to both fit in the mold and a little bit outside of it, but also the judges see what she's doing and appreciate it.
Someone said quite a few people said stuff like this. They said they said what a good premiere, so refreshing to see something else except that from the train wreck that Global All Stars is.
I mean, it's even worse for Global All Stars with this airing right like the next day, or Global All Stars airs the day after this. So everyone is like, wow, that was a 10 out of 10 episode. And then in the next morning, you watch Global All Stars and you're like, wow, that's not good at all.
I feel so. I mean, that's a separate topic, but I feel so bad for the Global All Stars cast in a lot of ways because I think their season is being dragged through the mud and it's not their fault. But I mean, it's not great. So I thought this was a breath of fresh air to see that no one went home. They were being judged, I would say, relatively fairly. I don't think anyone got an unfair critique. So I'll be interested to see how the rest of the season goes. But yeah, definitely a nice palate cleanser from Global All Stars.
For sure.
And then the last comment I left, this comment, I don't know who, these were all anonymous, so I don't know who left these, but this was, I
Oh,
thought,
wow.
quite an interesting comment and like maybe slightly controversial in a way. Someone said, I don't know if it's due to oversaturation with Drag Race at the moment, but I was so bored during the majority of the Cabaret show. I don't agree that this is the part I'm not sure if they confused this. I don't know because this doesn't really make sense. But they said, I don't agree that Kyron should have been in the top two. Her performance, while energetic, felt like another Kakadaboom dance number. So I think maybe they're confusing her with someone else, but she was in the top two. Because I thought, are they confusing her with Actavia? Because she's the only one that did that, but she wasn't top two.
Either this person is confused or they're just a contrarian.
Yeah, so I mean, if you are brave enough to tell us in the comments of this video that it's you, maybe you clear this up because this doesn't make sense. But let's just say that they meant that they didn't like Kyron's number, even though it wasn't a Kakadaboom dance number. They said Lil or Relisa would have been my choice for the other spot besides Lavoie.
Lil obviously did a great job. I don't think it was as, I don't know. Like I feel like her and Kyron were, I think, the two most unique ones and the ones that I'm going to remember. Um, so that's not crazy. But like I've said, the releases just wasn't for me. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't the most memorable. I wasn't like jumping out of my seat.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been my top. I think Lil definitely released and maybe not so much, but I did really like Kyron, so I can see I thought it was probably the correct top two. So I'm not 100% sure, but this person this comment jumped out to me because it was maybe slightly more on the controversial side compared to most of the other comments that were quite in agreement as to who should be in the top. This was one of the only ones that wasn't.
Did you skip through the scene where the puppet jumped off her back and landed in a split and then jumped into the air again and did a dip? That might be what they're talking about.
Yeah, obviously they saw something we didn't. But yeah, that this I was so confused by this comment, but it intrigued me enough that I was like, I need to ask.
Right.
Well, that's all of the questions. So thank you so much. I just wanted to kind of. So, what would you say then are your overall impressions of this series compared to the other UK seasons? Do you think this is going to be one of the top seasons? Like, is this going to compete with something like season two, which arguably was the best one, or do you think this is going to be another one that maybe is more on the meh side?
I feel like UK almost always delivers. Three is, I think, the one is like the ugly step sibling, but or ugly stepsister. Is that whatever the phrase is? But I don't love four, but I feel like they came back really, really strong with five, and I feel like this has even a better premiere than five did, and this cast makes me even more excited than the cast of season five did. So like I have very high hopes. I hope they don't come crashing down because Drag Race has done that to us before. But I'm really, really excited about just like the diversity of the cast and the diversity of the types of drag. And I hope that they don't fuck it up.
I agree. I really liked this. I thought it was a really good premiere. It's interesting to see how it'll go because I think season two personally is my favorite. I think it's one of the best seasons there's ever been of any drag race. And the reason it was successful, in my opinion, was because it had a mix of different types of queens. It had really interesting storylines, quite a few shady queens that brought the storylines as well. And there was a lot of development because of obviously the COVID, them stopping. This I thought there's a little bit of shade going on, but there's also a lot of talent. So I think you either have to have one or the other. And if they have both, then I think it's got the potential to be amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here, Derek slash drag detective. And I just want to then, could you perhaps give me a little bit of a final thought and maybe sum up this season in one word?
Well, thank you for having me first. I love your channel. I am a huge fan, and I love that I've been able to be a part of it. I mean, it was only one episode, so I hope this doesn't come back to haunt me. But I think the one word that I would use, two words, hyphenated, to describe this premiere is Huge potential.
That is a good. No, that's great. I love that because it can be interpreted in different ways. So I agree. I think it's going to be interesting. I think that was the word I would use is interesting slash varied.
Okay, yeah, I agree.
Thanks so much for joining me. And yeah, please let me know in the comments what you thought. Let me know what you thought of the premiere and whether you agree that this season had a lot of potential. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.